guys?
Should we leave that session, inaugural session?
Yeah, I have left that session. I have left the AICTE session. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank
you. Okay, yeah. So let me take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Senthil Kumar. Okay, a very old colleague of mine, a very senior colleague of mine. Okay, a serious researcher. Okay, he's working on a couple of very cutting-edge areas in social entrepreneurship and similar stuff. Okay, so briefly introducing him, a colleague of mine. Can you switch off your, hello, somebody there, can you switch off your mic, please? Yeah. A colleague of mine in the area of HROB here at IMT Nagpur, basically a citizen of Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. He was born and brought up over there. He did his PhD from Iqbal University, Dehradun. He has been teaching OB and HRM courses to MBA since the year 2000. He has published several papers in international journals. Okay, he teaches cases in international journals and magazines, apart from presenting research papers in international conferences held in London and Amsterdam. In 2005, spent some 10 months at Bentley University, Boston, USA, working on research projects. Okay, his current research interests are focused on sustainable entrepreneurship. He has contributed as a resource person to many management development programs conducted by IMT Nagpur in the fields of group dynamics, power and politics, performance management, and change management. Okay, he has spent sizable amount of time as a faculty member in ICFI, a business school at Hyderabad. Okay, so with these little words, let me present Dr. Senthil Kumar to you. Now, Dr. Senthil Kumar, floor is all yours. Okay, you can start your session from here on. Hope we have a very enriched session in the next 90 minutes or so. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jagannath. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. I think you underlined old senior colleague. I'm not very old, I feel. I'm still young, at least in my thoughts. Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this first session of this FDP. Hello, am I audible? You can raise your hands.
Yes, sir. This is the second session. Hello, sir. This is the second session. First session is already over. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Audible, sir. Audible, sir.
Fine. This session, I have got two sessions in this FDP. This is a sage on the stage versus guide on the side. And then second session is about experiential learning. And both these sessions are somewhat connected, interconnected. And in fact, all the sessions that we have planned for this FDP, they are all focused on one theme, how to engage students better. That is the major theme, I think. And what we should do as a teacher, what we can do so that they will all the students will be intrinsically motivated to learn, and then they are all going to be engaged in the classroom or in the whole learning process. That is the common theme that connects all the sessions. This session as well as experiential learning sessions, again, they are all interconnected, because whatever I'm going to talk now, it's about setting the mindset. And the next session, I'm going to deal more with the techniques that we can follow in the B schools. So in that way, this session is going to set the mindset, right? What I have done, I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation. I will also allow you to speak in between, and you can also share your experience. You can add to the discussion, because in FDP, I don't want to be, even in the classroom also, I don't want to be a lecturer, or I don't want it to be a monologue. So I want it to be a dialogue, and this session will also be like that. And you can share, you can ask questions, you can share your comments, you can add on whatever I'm saying. So you can simply unmute yourself and then you can start speaking. So that is the way the session is going to go, right? Let me start my PPT, and then in between I'm going to stop, and then we are going to have some discussion about the points that I'm showing. So now it is 12:15. So I'm going to take for about 1 hour 30 minutes or so to complete my session. That's the plan here. Right? Let me share my PPT here. Yeah, sage on the stage versus guide on the side. The point here is, can we, as a teacher, what should be our role in a typical B school environment as a teacher? That is the question. Should we need to become a sage, like a sage on the stage? When I say sage on the stage, the assumption here is, as a teacher, I have answers for all the questions, and I am an omniscient, and I'm going to tell whatever I know about the world, about how the corporate world works. And as a students, they are going to simply listen to me and then get whatever I am going to talk about. So that is the assumption behind the metaphor sage on the stage. Whereas on the other hand, there is one more model, that is guide on the side. Here you act like a coach. You act like a coach, so that the students, the assumption here is the students also know something before they join a B school, and let's use that knowledge and experience, and let us as a teacher, let me help the students to discover themselves, and then they can let us help them to develop skills, required skills, so that they can become a good manager or a leader. So the difference here is, I may not have all the answers. Rather, I'm going to help you to, or I'm going to set the environment, learning environment in such a way that the students are going to discover about themselves. What do they know? What they don't know, and how they can improve. So I'm going to be there as a guide, constantly observing them, giving feedback, and then adjusting my delivery, so in a way that is highly suitable for the students' requirements. So in that way, the guide on the side is just it is drastically opposite to what the assumptions behind sage on the stage. So sage on the stage here is a typical teacher, as a guru, I know everything, and I'm going to share whatever I know, and you are going to passively listen to me and then get the knowledge from me. That is the idea behind sage on the stage. Guide on the side, on the other hand, it's a kind of a coach. And the major differences, I feel, the power distance between a teacher and the student is reduced on the guide on the side. And we are going to treat them as a client. Let me use another metaphor here, professional and client. I'm a professional. As a client, you have come to me with some need, and then I'm going to help you to address the problem that you're facing. That is a kind of a consultant job, right? So even I can use that metaphor here in my role as a guide on the side. So that is the theme behind this session, sage on the stage versus guide on the side. So basically, what I'm trying to tell, we have to move away from the mindset of being a sage on the stage whenever we are in a B school, and then we should move towards the role of guide on the side. So that is the point that I'm trying to make here. So if you can ask me, sir, sage on the stage, is it totally irrelevant? I won't say that way. Even sage on the stage, you can use then and there. And sometimes students may have very little idea or knowledge about some concept or some understanding. So you can bring in your experience and insight and wisdom. There you can spend some time as sage on the stage. So that is the idea. So I'm not going to tell that sage on the stage is totally irrelevant, but the time that we are going to spend the model of SAGE on the stage should be very minimum. Rather, most of the time we should spend as guide on the side in a B school environment. That's so. How to change? How to, or rather, how to operate with the mindset of guide on the side? So for that question, I have got around 11 pointers that would help us to get an insight on how to change ourselves from sage on the stage to guide on the side. Here is the first pointer, I would say. First one is changing the questions. So let us change. Let us ask some fresh questions, right? What is teaching? Okay, can anyone answer for this question? What is teaching here?
Transferring knowledge to the students.
Okay, transferring knowledge to the students. Any other? Please feel free to speak. Any other? Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
From Odisha. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes,
sir,
yes.
Making the students to be environment friendly, if they will able to solve the being a teachers.
Okay, okay, okay. Any
So
other?
can I
Any other answer?
Yeah,
Yes, please. What
I feel teaching is basically making sure that students internalize whatever we are, whatever knowledge we're sharing with them, and they should be able to apply that, come to certain solutions, or they should be able to do something by application of knowledge. So it is not just transferring knowledge, that wouldn't be teaching, but it is only if the students can apply that knowledge which has been transferred very effectively and efficiently, that I would think is teaching.
Wonderful. I think that I would take that as the valid answer for teaching. As you pointed out, yes, teaching is not per se about transferring knowledge. If I analyze that definition further, transferring knowledge, then the focus is on the teacher. What I know or what subject I should teach. So we are focused on the teacher and the content that I'm going to deliver. Whereas the definition that you talked about, it is focused more on the students. They are learning. So simply, I would say, what is teaching? If learning doesn't take place, then there is no teaching. So what is teaching? Learning should happen. Only then we can say that we have taught something. But sometimes we feel that we have taught so many theories or concepts or frameworks. But when we go and check with our students, how did they learn from us? Then we may be quite surprised to find their answers. Sometimes some answers may be relevant to whatever we taught. Sometimes they would have learned altogether a different thing from us. And sometimes they would have misunderstood the concepts. So teaching is all about checking whether they have learned or not. So the focus, that's what, changing questions. We have to ask different questions about learning and teaching. In fact, 10 years ago, I started this thought. Okay, I am a teacher. In fact, I have gone into teaching career for about 6 to 7 years. Then in the first 5 to 6 years, the focus is on me only. Let me be honest. I was so worried and concerned about how I'm going to look before the students and how I'm going to talk about the concepts. Can I remember, is it possible for me to remember all the ideas behind the concepts? So in early career, my focus is on me or the content that I'm going to deliver. But later on, I realized, no, that should not be the way. The focus should move from a teacher to the students. So what is the most important thing for them? Why they have come to the class and why they should listen to me. And after listening to me, how they are going to apply the principles and ideas in their corporate world. So that's where we have to start. So this FDP maybe help you to ask the right questions about about teaching and learning process. And moreover, teaching learning process is a very complex. Still, I'm figuring out how students learn. In fact, a lot of theories are there. If you go to psychology, a lot of learning theories are available for you, how adults do learn. In fact, I have also used two important theories that I feel very relevant for us as a B school teacher. One is Bloom's theory and the Kolb's learning theory. And I'm going to explain these two theories in a brief. Many of you may be knowing about that, but I felt that these two theories are very powerful in helping us to understand how adults do learn, or how my students are going to learn. But teaching learning process is still complex because the students' attention span is now, it's very short. Some scholars say that it is 7 to 10 minutes. But again, because of the various reasons, maybe technology or social media usage, or they may get a lot of answers for the questions typically provided by the teachers from Google. By simply Googling, they will find all the answers. So our challenge is now, it is enormous. So we have to reinvent ourselves every year or frequently to understand the requirements of the students and how do they learn, right? So that is the first pointer here, changing the questions. So what is my role as a teacher, and how I am going to ensure my students are going to learn what they are required to learn, right? So the focus should move from how will I teach this to how will students learn this. So when we spend more time on how will students learn this, then our effectiveness in the classroom will go up. If we start thinking about how will students learn this, then we may be pushed to find out different pedagogical methods so that the students can learn better the concepts, right? That is the reason why we have to move from the focus from us to them. Okay, that is the first pointer. Some of the questions that can be asked related to the first pointer like this: what should students learn during the class time? When they are together, what they are supposed to do? And learning doesn't happen only in the classroom. It happens outside the classroom also, right? So we have to think about what should students learn during the class time. And how can students get engaged in the learning process? How can I make the time interesting, informative, and active? How can students connect new material to what they already know? So again, the assumption here is they are not simply coming there without any idea about what we are talking about. So if I talk about, say, behavior in a corporate world, in organizational behavior course, they know, many of them would have worked in corporate world, and they can easily understand the concepts like motivation or personality. So we have to think about how to use whatever they know, or how to build whatever they know or whatever they have experienced, so that we can communicate what we want to do. So these are some of the questions that can be asked. The second point here is focusing on learner-centeredness. As somebody told, the definition of teaching, it has to start from the students. So how to engage students? When I say engage students, students should be intrinsically motivated. They should not be there simply for grades, or they are required to attend some classes. So if they are sitting there because they are supposed to attend the classes for the attendance part, then the learning may not take place. In my opinion, unless the students are intrinsically motivated, they study the subject because they feel there is some relevance in the subject, they are going to apply that knowledge, then they enjoy studying the subject, then we can say they are intrinsically motivated, right? So the questions here help them, how to help them create their own meaning. Professor's role, as I told you, is to coach and facilitate rather than teaching or transferring some knowledge, or create a culture that is collaborative and supportive. In my classroom, I use lot of activities and lot of interaction take place. As I told you, I don't believe in giving a monologue. Rather, I engage them into a lot of activities like role play, management games, or case study analysis. I make them to speak, and it's very difficult. Some of them are reticent. It's very challenging for us to make them to speak. So I have some component like class participants. So through these methods, and I also tell them that you're all going to learn not only from me, but you're all going to learn from others. So you have to listen to others, because if I take a case, if they all listen to me, then I can share my perspective. So my perspective is only one perspective. But in a B school, especially in a management education, the situation has got a lot of perspectives, right? Different angles that we can look into that situation. It could be something related to marketing problem, or it could be something related to operational issue, or it could be the issue at hand, could be related to HR or finance related issue. Or even in OBHR cases also, the situation can be analyzed from multiple perspectives, right? We may not know the people's motives, why they behave, because no one is going to tell others, I'm behaving like this because my motive is like this. So motives are all hidden. So situation will also be like that. So a situation can be analyzed from multiple perspectives. So here the students should need to listen to each other without any judgment. So that we call that active listening. So that is very important. So here, so the point here is, as a teacher, I always think about how I'm going to create that environment in the classroom. Not only in the classroom, in the whole 3 months they are going to with me. They are going to be with me. So what are the activities so that they will get what I want them to get? Maybe some knowledge, maybe skill, maybe some application of the theories into some new situations. So whatever that I have in my mind as an objective of the course, so I'm going to keep on thinking about the different activities so that students will be engaged naturally. They should not listen to me out of compulsion. Rather, they should listen to me and as well as to others out of sheer, because they find it very relevant. And learning is enjoyable. That's the reason why they should be there. So in that way, we have to create that environment. So here, how to move from teaching to learning? So what subject shall we teach to what methods and techniques are required to teach well? So we have a lot of pedagogical tools. Pedagogical methods are sometimes some scholars say the andragogical tools, because the pedagogy has got something to do with the kids, whereas we are dealing with adults. So that word, the right word should be andragogical. But whatever the even when I say pedagogical, I also mean andragogical. The reason here is the different methods that are available for us is enormous. Maybe project-based learning, or a learning journal, or some games, or role play exercise, or some immersion exercises. Suppose in a cultural diversity class or cultural diversity course, you can ask your students to spend 15 hours in a different environment, in an environment which is quite different from their own environment. Maybe we are situated in Nagpur, so we get students from different parts of the country. So let them go and spend some time with the Marathi-speaking family in a village. So that would give them a different perspective about the culture of Maharashtra, right? So that way, different pedagogical methods we can follow so that they can be fully engaged in the class. And what purpose and to what ends do we teach? So what they are going to do after learning OB, or what they are going to do after learning HR. So many of my students are not going to specialize in HR, but we have a core course in HRM. And they sometimes they feel that, sir, why I should study HRM, because I'm going to become a marketing manager or operation manager. Then we have to create the need for them to learn HRM, because HRM is too important to be left alone to HR department. I would start from that statement, and then I would say all the line managers are HR managers, and you are the guys who take decisions on many HR related issues. HRM department is simply there to because line managers don't find time to get into the details of the HRM. So HRM is a staff function that supports or helps the line managers to deliver HR responsibilities. So in that way, I create the need. So I have to think about, so as a marketing student, why you should learn HR, right? Even though I teach HRM, I have to think about it. Unless I am convinced, I cannot convince my student why they should learn this subject, right? So that is the idea behind this slide. Okay, let me complete this and I'll come back to you. You can share your experience. There's something related to previous point, a course plan. See, I would say almost 30% of the time I spend on the course, designing the course. Every session, what are the topics and what are the activities that I'm going to do? And it could be a video-based learning, or it could be a case-based learning. So I have a detailed course outline. So these are some of the questions that should be answered in your course plan. For example, in class participation, I give 20% weightage, 20 marks, right? In 20 marks, my students should know in the first session itself, I would tell them if I decide to give 20 out of 20 or 18 or 19 out of 20, and I would tell them, or I have a rubric, something called rubric. That rubric will have the statements that tell my students clearly if they want to get 18 out of 20 in class participation, these are the behavior they should have exhibited throughout the course. For example, attending all my classes. So maybe one or two classes they can miss out of some medical emergency or some occasion. One class they can miss, but 90% they should attend, number one. And in most of the classes, or in all the classes, they should have participated, and they should ask right questions, relevant questions, and they should build on others' ideas. So I would clearly explain in the rubric. So these are the statements. 18 out of 20 means I would expect you to behave these behaviors. Similarly, suppose if I decide to give say 2 out of 20 or 5 out of 20, then that behavior will also be exhibited. The student doesn't fail to attend many classes, or fail to participate, fail to ask even a single question, and most of the time he is not engaged, he doesn't listen to others. So these are the behaviors that would warrant very low marks from me as CP. So everything, how I'm going to assess, how I'm going to teach, and what are the expectations. Even project, when I give project, what am I expecting from the project? Project should be very meaningful and engaging, and why that group project should be given. That will also be explained to them. So that's what course plan is. So I spend a lot of time in planning my course. That's where the effectiveness would begin. Again, if you ask me, sir, is it possible for you to plan for all the 20 sessions well in advance? No. Maybe 2/3, 66% of the planning would be done before I start my course, but 1/3 of the planning I will not do, because every day I read and then I bring a lot of examples from the corporate world, or sometimes I encounter a lot of interesting videos from YouTube, and I would use that. So that will also be flexible. 1/3 of my course delivery is flexible. That's what I follow. Right? So I'm sharing my experience. The whole the session, both the sessions. This is my experiential, my sharing of my experience. Just see if it makes sense. You can follow. Otherwise, you can apply your own logic, and then you can take whatever is appropriate according to you. So let me, before I go for third pointer, I want to listen to you, your experience, and what is your comment, what is your take on whatever I have covered so far. Yeah, you can switch on your camera and then you can speak. Anyone? Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir. Actually, it was great.
What's your experience? To what extent you follow whatever I told in your these
Yes,
told?
sir. Actually, what you told, we are not able to follow the entire things, because there are certain things at the college level which some problems, but still we can give some inputs ourselves to follow the entire things. Sometimes what happens, the entire pedagogy that we are not able to follow what you say. Sometimes we teach the students even if we're not having so much of the practical videos and audios. So we
Mhm.
go by teaching them theoretically, and we sometimes also we make them or we teach them like to attend the exam, to write the exam itself, and not to be that much of practically involved. So that is a drawback, I think, that we are sometimes we are doing ourselves. So what you
Okay.
told, you will follow it. It will be a great, it will be a profound way of teaching students.
Okay. Oh, thanks for sharing whatever the situation that you are facing. Let's figure out how to come out of that, right? We have to come out of that situation. Maybe you can influence the management to bring in some infrastructure so that it will be helpful to you. But okay. Others, yeah, Anuradha, Gaikwad, yeah.
Yeah, sir, I do use a lot of the active learning strategies or teaching strategies as we talk about them. Flipped classroom or think, pair, share, or web-based learning or project-based learning.
Yeah.
My problem is different. It becomes very difficult to motivate the students to actually shift over to these strategies because they are so used to, sitting in a classroom and listen to a person continuously deliver something. So maybe where they are physically present, mentally absent. So could you shed some light on what could be done to, make the students change over to our active learning strategies? For example, if I'm doing a flipped classroom and I give them a video, because we do use a Moodle, so I can always give them a content on Moodle. Right now, of course, we are having online teaching, so we're using Google Classroom. So if I give them a link, I know that around 20-25% will watch it. The rest of the class has not watched it. So could you shed some light on that?
Yeah. Others, can you please mute your mic so that it will be very clear, the audio? Yeah. What the challenge here is, many times the students, they fear about that marks. They feel that they have to get the marks, right, somehow. And then because of that environment, somehow we have created an environment, they are becoming very defensive and they are very close to that intrinsic motivation and they don't want to learn out of sheer pleasure in learning that. So in the initial classes, I try to remove that fear from the minds of my students. Initially, even the distance between the teacher and the student should be minimized. It should be at par. You are like me only. So I may know little more than you. Apart from that, I'm like you only. So that kind of message I would communicate. So I encourage them, you can speak without any fear. This is the safest environment in which you can share your ideas. Sometimes they don't want to speak up. The reason is how others think about me when I speak up. If I say something, if somebody criticizes them, what I will do. So these kind of hesitations will be there in the student's mind. One is, of course, the fear about the exam or the marks. So that is one. And secondly, they think a lot about how others are going to the self-image. So they are worried about the self-image. So in the initial classes, I talk about all these fears. I tell them there is no need for you to have any fear in my class. You can speak freely and you can ask any questions. Still, students, some students will be there. Some students will naturally they are going to participate and they are going to be get the opportunity first and then speak up. So I use them also. I tell them and see, look at that, and that's how you should behave. Look at them. That behavior you should also exhibit. So they would have understood by the mid of my term, my course. They would all tell me, sir, I have a problem. I'm an introvert. I am a shy person. I cannot speak up in the class. So tell me. Then I would tell, okay, if you want, I can call you next class. So sometimes it works with some students. So they may not come openly on their own, but I will tell them I'm going to pick you next time. So be ready with your analysis and answer. So what they do, they speak up, and then that experience will change their attitude. Oh, I can also speak up. Oh, so people are listening to me. So that itself will give that enough boost, right? And then how the point that you talked about, sometimes they disengage with whatever you do. Again, it's all in our hands how to make it very interesting. Or before watching, you send that video and then ask what did you observe from the video, and try to connect that content of the video with the course or with the concept in the book. Then, oh, okay, whatever the teacher is doing, that is the link between the course and the activity. So if they find that link, they would be more interested to participate in all the activities. So in other words, but the bottom line here is they should get that idea, or they should believe, or they should perceive whatever we are doing, it's for their own benefit, and the experience are all going to help them in learning the subject better, right? Anyway, I have more tips for you in the coming hours. Let's see. How about others? Any one more participant's experience here, please? Yeah, Rajesh Kumar Sahu, you raised your hand. You want to speak up? Okay. If no one is there, then let me continue. So my slide is visible, the third one. Emphasizing self-awareness. Yes, yeah.
Yes,
The
sir,
third
we
point
can.
yeah, thank you. The third point here is the student should understand their personal strengths and the areas of improvement. In the first class itself, I would make them to write about themselves. And I generally follow a pedagogy tool called Learning Journal, and I give some weightage there also. So they have to document their learning. The first day, I would want them to write about themselves. Rather, the question that I would ask the generally OB class or some other course like Interpersonal Skills Lab, that's another course. I would want them to write about themselves. Who am I? Can you? I would simply ask them, can you write the answer for this question? Who am I? This has got a lot of implications for them as a student. They should, I used to tell them, unless you know about yourself, you can't manage others. Simple. It's as simple as that. You should know when you are going to lose your cool. You should know, is it comfortable for you to speak up your mind when you are in a group? You should know how to what extent you are good in playing some positive politics in an organization or in a group. You should know whether you can correct the social loafers' behavior in a group situation. So emphasizing self-awareness, what do they know? What do they lack? So they should know more than me as a student. They should know about their strengths as well as areas of improvement. Not only that, they should and we should also give them feedback. Whenever I take some presentation, I give a lot of feedback. Not only me, I ask my students. I randomly pick some student and then ask them to give feedback to the person who's presenting. So the feedback mechanism is very important in the teaching learning environment. So emphasizing self-awareness is another pointer, right? And communicating openly and honestly, engage students through conversation and dialogue after developing trust and confidence in one another. Incorporate, yeah, this is important in both ways. To what extent are we open as a teacher whenever we interact with students? Are we genuine in our feedback? And I tell them what the feedback, whatever comes to my mind, whether you are good or you are bad, or how you can improve upon your areas of improvement. Everything I tell openly, honestly. That's one thing, and they should believe in us. Some trust should be there between the student and the teacher. Again, it's again a challenging area. I feel that I am unbiased, and I know I'm unbiased only. But sometimes when I see the final feedback, sometimes, not all the students, fortunately, some students feel that I am biased somehow, right? This is again sharing my experience honestly with you also. How can I be biased towards some students? How is it possible? I used to wonder myself. How is it possible to become biased against some students or towards some students? It's not possible. But again, some students believe that way. That is very important feedback that I'm getting. So I have to be, again, more cautious and careful whenever I interact with my students. Because I need to communicate this honesty or the trust, and they should trust me. Okay, here is a teacher whom I can go up, look up to, and then get guidance for all their learning needs. So that kind of trust is important. And secondly, trust among themselves also important. Again, there is a challenge. Recently, last week, I took a presentation, online classes only, OB class. I took presentation. One of the girls, one of the group, I think it's an individual presentation. What she did, I gave them a topic of, I think, power and politics, related to power and politics. So what she did, she collected some data from 10 of her friends in a class, and then she used that data, she analyzed some data, and then she gave that analysis. So she showed some pictures there. Then I asked, it's a good idea, and others could not. No, I asked her, how come 10 only? So there were 35 students in the class, but she could collect only data from 10. So that is the question that I had asked. This is an interesting answer came. She told, sir, I collected only 10 because I didn't want this idea to be spread among all the students. Otherwise, they would follow this idea. They would use this idea. Actually, that comment made me to think again. That behavior will also be a hindrance for their learning. So, what does it mean? They think the fellow students as their competitors, correct? Who are sitting in the classroom, they are competitors. They want to keep everything secret. Again, that will not help them to learn better in a classroom. Uh, they should connect with others, and they should trust others, and they should share ideas freely with others, and then together they should learn. That's what we call community learning. How it happens? Because I'm giving them individual marks, giving marks based on the individual performance. So that is the point. That is the root cause of this problem. So here's the challenge. As a teacher, I don't want them to exhibit that behavior. They want to openly communicate with others. Even case discussion. Harvard case discussion model is they have got something called learning teams among the students. A small group of students, they come together. Even ISB also I have observed that behavior. Before they go to the class, as a group, they discuss the case among themselves first, and then they come to class. that's my dream actually. I always wanted that to happen among my students, but somehow I could not make it happen. I always try that also. Why can't you form a group and then discuss the case before you come to the class? Somehow they are not doing it. Maybe the root cause is this. In a class, I discuss the case in general, which means anybody can speak up and anybody can contribute, right? It's not a group-based case discussion. So if marks are awarded based on the individual contribution, then every student thinks about others as their competitors. Well, that is the block, right? Again, it is a challenge. So when they discuss a case in the group before they come to class, the learning would be exorbitant. It would be amazing, but somehow they are not doing it. It's again challenge for us how to do that. Maybe some points can be allotted to the group-based case discussion, and then we can give some marks for the individual contribution. There are some methods to overcome that problem. So that is another. So what I'm trying to say is in this pointer, they need to trust us. We need to trust them, and we should go to the classroom that all the students are here they are all intrinsically motivated. They are here because they love the subject. That is the assumption that I always have. Sometimes some students may think otherwise. They may be simply there because of the grades or whatever it is, but I don't bother about them because fortunately that percentage is very small. Maybe 10%, 15% of the students may not be interested totally because their priorities could be different. So I'm not worried about them. I'm more worried about my majority. Maybe 60 to 70% of the students are with me. So I keep them in my mind and then I operate. If I start thinking about those students who are totally disengaged, then it would color my assumption about my students, right? So why I'm telling this, to develop that openness, to develop the trust between me and the students, and the students should also trust each other. So I need to create that environment so that they can trust each other. Again, in my course, in the initial classes, I make them to do some group projects, in the sense, some games. So tower building games, I give them some newspapers and ask them to build the towers within some time limit, or some bridge making exercise. So they have to come together and then develop a plan to make a bridge by using newspapers. The bridge should withstand maybe 15 OB books. So that is the task that I give in the opening, in the first or second session itself. Why? Because I communicate this idea, you guys have to trust each other. You need to learn together as a community, and teams are going to be there in a corporate world, how you are going to influence each other in the team environment. So these are the valuable lessons that we can bring in the subject. Cultivating relationship. Again, this I talked about it, something related to fourth point. Create sense of community. Community should be there. The whole class section. I taught section C last time, the last term. So section C community should be there, and slightly above that, all first year students. Then the next level is all IMT Nagpur students. So all the students need to be there as a community. They have to help each other, right? And we have a lot of student-driven committees and forums in our B school. So those are all, again, another wonderful platforms through which we can teach them important lessons. Anyway, I'll come back towards the end. I'm going to talk about that. Here, the relationship building mechanisms. Maybe you can give your contact number and email IDs. Again, so initially, again, early career, I thought that many students may disturb me. No. Very few students would call you and ask for doubts, but still you leave your contact details with them, especially post COVID-19. We are all going to work. We have been working with them through online modes only. We have been communicating with them through online modes. So they access my WhatsApp, they call me, they send me mails. So through these also we can develop good relationship, right? So that's the point. Sharing value system. You should know about your personal values, and then you communicate your experience and values in when you are interacting with your students. That is very important. Your experience, probably you would have had some good boss, a good leader. You can share what are the leadership qualities that you have observed in him, or you would have been in a different group environment. What are the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome that? You share that with the students. Even in the cultural Hofstede's dimension, when I talk about Hofstede's cultural dimension, I share a lot about my experience in US. I stayed some time in US, and how I found it difficult to adjust myself to the cultural system over there. So I share a lot of experience, a lot of personal values, and with the students. So in that way, again, they can connect with you more, right? Practicing reflection. Here, every this point again, I talked about it. Continuous feedback activities require students and faculty to reflect for making improvements. One probably in this pointer, this point I have not covered previously. We need to collect feedback from the students. Of course, IMT Nagpur, in our B school, we have a system of collecting feedback. Midterm. One midterm feedback will be collected. At the end of the 10th session, they collect feedback and they give it to us. That is the formal feedback mechanism, and they collect at the end of the session also. On the end of the course also, they collect the feedback. But the midterm feedback is very important, because we can have some scope for us to improve our delivery, right, according to the students' requirements, learning needs. So that collecting feedback about our codes, about our style of delivery is very important. So you can have plus and delta. Plus, what are the things that I need to continue? I should not stop, but I should continue doing the same thing. Delta can, the column, they can write what needs to be stopped, what needs to be started. That's about our delivery and about me, right? Not only that, the feedback should also be from me to them also. I should also give them feedback then and there. I give them feedback then and there. Even in the classroom scenario, after teaching some concept, if I look at their faces, I will get the feedback, whether they got the concept correctly or wrong, right? Or they're not understood that concept properly. I could easily collect that feedback. So continuous checking and reflection about your experience. Every class experience makes you to refine your classroom delivery, right? It should happen very frequently in the mid of the session, or they will also want feedback. So many times my students would come to me and, sir, your feedback, how did I do? Very valued, very genuine. You have to share your feedback, whatever it may be, because they are there for that, right? They are there to improve themselves. So they value our feedback. So that is the idea behind this pointer 7. Making connection. Oh, here I'm talking again. Somebody the early somebody talked about the definition. When she talked about the definition of teaching and learning, they talked about how important for the students to understand the connection between whatever we do in the classroom or the theories or the concept with the world outside the education. That is very important. Anyway, I'm going to talk about this Bloom's taxonomy. There, I'm going to share an experience or an example how the students can connect the dots, connect the theory and then their experience. So unless they make connections, the learning will not happen. They have to see the big picture. Here, the metaphor that I can use, the B school education is like asking the students to do the jigsaw puzzle. So they collect all the puzzle pieces and then they fix that jigsaw puzzle. We have to ask one more question. Are we able to tell them the big picture that is coming out of the jigsaw puzzle? So why are they reading all these theories? how they are all interconnected, right? And how they could connect the theory with the outside world. For example, gender stereotyping. When I talk about gender stereotyping, I I send them some videos wherein how our advertisements are portraying or reinforcing this gender stereotyping in the minds of the citizens, right? Or there are even the textbooks, the NCERT textbooks have a lot of examples that would reinforce gender stereotyping. So I go out and then explain, and even for some other examples like procedural justice, for example. These are the examples that come to my mind now. Then I connect this procedural justice idea with the outside world event, like in Tech Mahindra case, one of the employees has been asked to submit his papers without any notification, and that conversation that happened between the HR manager and the employee became viral, and it made Anand Mahindra to come and apologize for that event. So those things I connect with the procedural justice, the idea behind procedural justice. So they have to constantly apply whatever they do in B school, especially in management education. It is an applied field. For psychology, for example, in OB, we get a lot of lessons from psychology, social psychology, anthropology. But no one is interested to learn psychology for the sake of studying psychology. Rather, they are interested to apply the concepts of psychology in the corporate world. So that's why they are interested, right? So we need to be more aware about this application of theories and concepts to the world outside. So when we make these connections, it would naturally make the class very interesting. I would request participants, please mute your mic. Can you tell who's the person? I can ask him. Who's the person? Please mute your mic. Yeah, Manisha Kaushik. Okay, I'll do that for you. Others, yeah. So I hope my PPT is visible now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
please. Yeah. So we should help the students to conceptualize the big picture. So in a B school, as I told you, it's an applied field. Even though we take a lot of things from economics, psychology, social psychology, how it is being applied in a corporate world. If we have a lot of examples, then naturally students would be interested. I had a student who measured psychology, and she gave me this feedback.